Warning, this video contains spoilers for the following: Red Dead Redemption and Red Dead Redemption 2. You have been warned. Enjoy. In 2010, Rockstar Games took us on a journey into the fading embers of the American frontier. Red Dead Redemption wasn't just a game, it was an experience, a simulation, and a masterpiece that told the story of one man trying to escape his past, only to find that the past has a way of catching up.
My name's John Marston.
Upon release, Red Dead Redemption was met with universal acclaim. Critics praised its storytelling, world building, and emotional depth. From casual gamers to die-hard Western fans, everyone found something to love about it. What made Red Dead Redemption truly special, though, was how players connected with its world. The freedom to roam, to make choices, heroic or villainous. It added a personal touch to John Marston's journey. The landscapes and the characters and the slow, deliberate pace immersed players in a world that felt truly alive.
It's amazing that I could just spend hours playing poker, blackjack, liar's dice, all in an extremely thematic setting. And then, simply at the press of a button, I can just get up from my chair and put a bullet in all of my competition. And then walk outside and be completely rewarded with this huge Western world to explore.
However, although the world feels alive, it's actually capturing the dying essence of the Wild West and the cowboys alongside it. You, yourself, as John Marston, hunt trails of your outlaw past to help accelerate the introduction of the new age, and as you get closer and closer, you can actually imagine John and his family in that said new age, which is why the ending to Red Dead Redemption is so perfectly bittersweet. And in the end, John Marston doesn't die an outlaw, he died a man protecting his family. But the question remains at the end, was it truly redemption, or was it just another chapter in endless violence? In 2018, when Red Dead Redemption 2 arrived, we got a seat at the other side of the story. Our protagonist was Arthur Morgan, a different kind of outlaw. Unlike John, who began his journey seeking redemption, Arthur starts as a loyal enforcer of the Linde Gang. He's rougher, more deeply entrenched in the outlaw life.
Keep her in black, on your behalf.
Yet over time, we see his conscience awaken. John was a man running from his past, but Arthur was a man realising he had one. Through Arthur's eyes, we witness the downfall of the gang and the price of loyalty. His journey is one of reflection, choice, and ultimately, his own kind of redemption. Our protagonist starts as the ideal outlaw. Loyal, disciplined, and dedicated to Dutch van der Linde and his gang. He believes Dutch's vision of freedom, believing himself to be part of something bigger. For years on end, Arthur has enforced the gang's will, doing whatever is necessary to survive, robbing, killing, whatever he is told to do. He's ruthless, pragmatic, and above all, he's devoted. But devotion can blind a man, and that's what this story's about. When the game begins, Arthur is already a seasoned outlaw. Fully committed to Dutch and his gang, we don't get a detailed backstory right away. Rockstar instead lets us learn about him gradually through conversations we have with other people in the game, his journal entries that we see him draw and jot in at the beginning of each chapter, and small details in the world. He doesn't explain himself up front because to Arthur his past isn't special. He's just another outlaw trying to make his way in a world that's quickly leaving men like him behind, as we see in Red Dead Redemption 1. Over time, we learn that Arthur was taken in by Dutch and Hosea Matthews at a young age. His father was a petty criminal who was killed, leaving Arthur alone. Arthur grew up idolising Dutch and Hosea, treating them like father figures. Arthur was born into the way of the gang's way of life. Arthur presents himself as a hardened, no-nonsense enforcer. He doesn't question orders. He truly believes that the gang is his family. But as the game progresses, we get glimpses of his deeper, more conflicted side. Through interactions with other gang members, we see that Arthur has a dry wit, and a surprising level of intelligence, an appreciation for things like art and philosophy, which you wouldn't expect from a rough outlaw. His journal is filled with sketches and thoughts that show a much more introspective man than he lets on. One of the most important aspects of Arthur's past is his relationship with Dutch. Arthur grew up completely devoted to him, believing in his vision of freedom and a life away from the civilization's grasp. Dutch moulded Arthur. As Arthur's past unfolds, we see how it shapes his transformation. He spent his entire life being told what to do, living by the gang's code. The more we learn about his past, the more we understand why he was so loyal for so long. And that's why his eventual turn away from Dutch is so powerful in this story. In chapter 5, we finally learn, with a conversation with Eagle Flies, that Arthur Morgan is actually a father.
You know, I had a son once, years ago. Don't talk about him much.
No, what was his name?
Isaac. His mother, Eliza, was a waitress I met. When she got pregnant, she knew who I was, what my life was. I didn't want to promise nothing I couldn't keep, but I said I'd do right by them. Every few months, I'd stop by there for a few days. He was such a good kid. She was too, I guess. Just a kid, 19.
What happened?
I got there one day and saw 2 crosses outside. I knew right away. Turned out some bastards had come through. Robbed him. Shot him dead. And offered $10. It hardened me. Feeling that kind of pain. But I know now that you don't get to live a bad life and have good things happen to you.
I think you're being hard on yourself.
Maybe. All I can do now is try and make some things right.
This loss hardened him into the shell we see today. He buried his grief under layers of violence and loyalty to the gang. But deep down, it shaped the man he would become. Knowing Arthur's past is essential to understanding his redemption arc. Unlike John, who was always searching for a way out, Arthur never thought he needed one, until it was too late. His past explains why he was so committed to Dutch, but it also makes his eventual realisation all the more meaningful. He was never born a good man, but he chooses to become one by the end, if you choose to do so.
Dear Arthur, I've written this letter 100 times or more, and I cannot get it right. It's me. You know it's me from the bad handwriting. I know I said when we last spoke, and I was going off to get married, that we would not speak again. I know I said a lot of things, and I meant them, I suppose, at the time. But I'm not so proud as to not speak to people who care for me, or cared for me. I've been in Valentine for a couple of months. I had some bad luck, and, well, it's a long story and not an interesting one. But I am here for now. I saw a couple of the girls, or whatever the polite term is for them, that ran with you and your associates in town. And I heard tell of a man who sounded like you. I would love to see you again, if you could spare me a little bit of your time. I'm renting a room at Chadwick Farm, just north of Valentine. Yours, Mary Linton. Hello, Arthur.
Mary?
Not all of Arthur's losses in his life were violent. Some were simply the result of the life he chose. Mary Linton was the one woman he had truly loved, but love alone was not enough for him. Mary wanted Arthur to leave the outlaw life behind. She saw the good in him, but she also saw what he had become. A man too tied to violence and loyalty to ever be truly free.
Whenever you call for me, I'll come.
Throughout the course of the game we run into Mary, and we have the option to choose whether to help her or not. Whilst watching the burning embers of what once was between the two, it is quite a viewing experience. We never see Arthur be this vulnerable or happy alongside someone else. And by default, he never goes out of his own way to help others, except when it comes to Mary. After helping Mary with her family dilemma, she gives Arthur an ultimatum. Stay and be an outlaw, and continue his life, or she goes and lives elsewhere, or he can run away with her and leave everything else behind him.
This time it really is.
Run away with me, Arthur. Run away right now and don't look back.
I want to. More than anything I want to. But I've got some people I need to take care of. Once they're free, then I'm free. Then I can disappear.
But Arthur...
If we're gonna run away anywhere, we need money. Soon, I'll have some.
I know you won't run away. But it's a pretty dream.
Always nattered in game about how life would always be so much different, yet so better if they'd finished what they'd started. It is their dream.
You know that.
Money.
Oh, Arthur. We were so very young. Think how different life could have been.
Yeah, I think about it. A lot. It all seems so long ago and far away now.
Arthur had a choice, to leave and be with her, or to stay and remain an outlaw. Returning to camp 24 hours after the conversation with Mary, you receive a letter.
Who is?
My dear Arthur, you never showed up. And now, after looking at the newspapers, I understand why. I don't imagine you'll receive this letter, but I, nonetheless, must send it. Arthur. Oh, Arthur. I was just starting to dream the silliest and softest of dreams. I miss you, and I will always miss you. But I cannot live like that. And it seems you cannot live any other way. When I'm with you, the world makes sense, but when we are apart, I see clearly that your world is not a world from which one can escape. I'm so sorry for everything long ago, and for starting up that business again. There's a good man within you, Arthur, but he is wrestling with a giant. And the giant wins time and again. You've broken my heart again, and I fear I have broken yours. And for that, I will never forgive myself, but you must let me go now. I enclose a ring you gave me many years ago, when we were both young. Not because I don't like it, but because I care for it far too much, and it reminds me too much of you. I hope one day you will find some people in love who can use this, for it kept me thinking of you all these years, and I hope by returning it to you, I can finally be free. Goodbye, Mary.
Give me a minute. Give me a minute. I'll be fine in a minute. I'm fine. Mister, I need some help.
And so it seems. And that's Dr. Mister to you?
I'm sorry.
I was joking. Look, friend, I don't mean nothing, but you got money? I mean, before I start treating you, 'cause I got a family.
I understand. Here, that do you?
Sure. Thank you. Now, what's wrong? I mean, what appear to be the symptoms?
Well, I think you've heard them. I'm coughing.
Is there any blood?
Sometimes.
Okay, now here. Breathe. Again. Let me see your tongue. Now say ah.
Ah.
What is it?
It's not good news.
I guess that.
You got tuberculosis. I'm really sorry for you, son. It's a hell of a thing.
What you mean?
You're real sick. It's a progressive disease, and you'll be... Now, the best thing is rest, and getting somewhere warm and dry, and taking it easy. Now, is that possible?
Sure, I can just take my winters in my country club in California. No, it's not possible.
Well, like I said, I'm real sorry.
Yeah, well...
Arthur Morgan is diagnosed with tuberculosis, a death sentence in the late 1800s. With his days numbered and him living on borrowed time, he begins to see the world so differently. The money, the violence, the endless running, it all seems so small and void now. For the first time, Arthur is no longer just surviving, he's living. He finds redemption not in violence but in selflessness. And he no longer fights for Dutch, he fights for those he cares about.
All right, Arthur, come on, let's go.
You go.
Keep pushing, Arthur.
No. No. I think I've pushed all I can.
Come on.
You go.
We ain't got time for this, not now.
We ain't both gonna make it. Go. Now. I'll hold them off. It would mean a lot to me. Please. There ain't no more time for talk. Go.
Arthur.
Go to your family.
Arthur!
Get the hell out of here and be a goddamn man.
You're my brother.
I know. I know.
At the game's climax, Arthur makes a conscious choice to help John escape, ensuring that at least one person from the gang can find their life beyond the violence. Arthur saving John is the ultimate act of redemption. He knows he won't make it out alive, but he ensures that John, who represents a second chance, can escape the cycle of violence. This moment ties directly to Red Dead Redemption, released in 2010, where John tries to live a peaceful life before being hunted by the very government that Arthur helped him escape. Arthur's sacrifice is what makes John's later story so tragic. Arthur Morgan may not be remembered in history, but his final act ensures that John has a shot at the life Arthur never got to have with Mary. In the end, Arthur Morgan doesn't leave a legacy of riches or glory. He leaves behind a lesson that a man's actions define him, not the gang he rides with. He chooses to die on his own terms, with honour. Arthur's story is one of redemption, not in the grand heroic sense, but in the quiet human way. He learns that it's never too late to do the right thing. Arthur Morgan's journey is one of the greatest character arcs in gaming history, if not the greatest. A man who started as an outlaw, but died as something more. A man who made peace with his choices. Through him, we are reminded that redemption is not about where you start, but where you choose to end. the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, John Marston has the life that Arthur Morgan fought to give him, a peaceful existence with his family, free from the chaos of Dutch's gang. However, as we see in Red Dead Redemption 1, that peace is temporary, and Arthur's influence echoes throughout John's final years. The epilogue picks up years later, with John attempting to live a lawful life as a rancher at Beecher's Hope. This marks a significant change from the John we saw in the gang. Arthur's influence is clear here. Through Red Dead Redemption 2, Arthur repeatedly tells John to be there for his family, warning him not to make the same mistakes he did with Mary. Before Arthur's redemption arc, he was a man who spent his life blindly following Dutch, only realising too late that he'd wasted years of his life on loyalty to the wrong people. He doesn't want John to suffer the same fate. This is why he pushes John to escape, gives him money, and sacrifices himself to ensure John has a future. John's attempts at an honest life are deeply tied to Arthur's dying wish that he not fall into the same cycle of violence and blind loyalty that doomed so many other people. Unlike many former gang members who continue the outlaw lifestyle, John actively rejects it, and this is Arthur's wish, helping John see that a peaceful life is worth fighting for. Despite Arthur's efforts, John's past eventually catches up to him, as we see in Red Dead 1, showing no matter how much he tries to change, the government still views him as an outlaw. Ironically, John ends up doing the same thing Arthur did, chasing his past while trying to protect his family. And the tragic part of this connection is that John follows Arthur's advice to leave the outlaw life behind, but he never truly escapes its consequences. Just as Arthur died ensuring John's freedom, John later dies ensuring his family's safety. The cycle of violence continues, though not because John wanted it to or John actively chased it, it's because the world around him wouldn't let him be anything else. So by the end of Red Dead Redemption 2, the Linde Gang is in complete ruins. Most of its members either die, disappear, or turn on each other, but a handful of people manage to escape, including John and his family. People like Charles, who help Arthur throughout the game. Sadie Adler, who we meet at the start of the game as a grieving widow, transforms into a deadly gunslinger after joining the gang. Tilly Jackson, one of the few former gang members who truly escapes the outlaw life. She settles down and marries a well-off man. Reverend Swanson becomes a preacher in New York, despite his drunken past. Uncle, despite his lack of usefulness, joins John in the epilogue and lives with them. Pearson, the camp cook, becomes a butcher in the town roads. And Mary Beth becomes a successful literature writer. People who escape the loop of violence for good.